Welcome to another episode of the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. Today we're talking about unemployment gaps and how to explain them on your resume and during an interview. I was an engineer and in 2008 lost my job due to the economic collapse. Jobs were scarce. I didn't know where to turn to get help updating my resume. Online services and coaches charge hundreds, even thousands of dollars. I took matters into my own hands and learned how to craft interview-winning resumes. Shortly later, I landed a job with a Fortune 500 company. I've helped many achieve similar success. Now I share my tips to create interview-winning resumes, interviewing excellence, and high-performance growth strategies on my podcast, Career Growth Made Easy. Hi there, I'm Craig Ansell, your host, and you're listening to the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. Today's show, number 154, How to Explain Unemployment Gaps. You know, I had a recent show, I think it was 150, titled Help Wanted Job Seeker Edition. And it was triggered because I saw Help Wanted signs everywhere when I traveled within the United States. They seem to be everywhere, these signs. And I've noticed there were for small businesses to large corporations. So that makes me wonder, if everyone's looking for work, how could we have unemployment gaps on our resume? But better yet, what do you need to do about it if you have gaps on your resume? So if you're concerned that while you're looking for employment, these unemployment gaps could show up in your life on your resume and be a red flag during an interview, we're going to talk about that today. For one, we're now in the middle of 2023. A lot has happened over the past years. COVID, wars, these are things no one could predict, and they're very unfortunate. Employers understand things happen in life. They're human also. We sometimes get a little overly concerned when it comes to our resumes and our interviewing abilities and what we're going to say, how we're going to explain things. That can lead to our anxiety, our stress, our fears ramping up. And if you've listened to my show for quite some time, you can also know that if you get a really large adrenaline hit when it comes to anxiety, stress, and fear, you can actually become verbally paralyzed. You might hear a question and not know how to respond. You're kind of locked up in the chair. And it's almost as if they had to repeat the question to you because you weren't listening or you were unable to respond. That's an extreme case when it comes to being stressed out and being, overtaken by anxiety, fear, your concerns, your worry. But that's why we want to talk about these things on these shows of Career Growth Made Easy, to help you feel more comfortable, more at peace when it comes to looking for a job, finding the right job, but also creating or updating your resume, and then finally interviewing. So what if you're sitting there in your car, you're taking a walk around during a break, and you say, Craig, I do have unemployment gaps on my resume, and it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me nervous. In fact, I don't want to mention them, or I don't even want to apply for jobs because I feel like it's a failure point in my life. You know what? That's something interesting to touch on briefly. Number one, let me say this clearly. You, my friend, are not a failure. You might have had some difficult challenges in your life. You might have had some failures in your life, failures to hold a job or failures to keep a job during a certain time period, but you are not a failure. These are simply points in your life where you had challenges. And failures do not define us. What defines us is how we overcome them. Okay? So that was a little pep talk to get you going. There is hope if you have unemployment gaps. No, you can't remove them. No, you can't undo them. But there are things you need to know about them in the middle of 2023, what trends are going on with our employers, what they're thinking, what they're saying, and how to handle yourself when dealing with them. So let's get into the good stuff. First of all, employers are human. They understand things happen. They understand life happens. So, today, employers have told me point blank, they're less concerned about employment gaps than they were in the past. They're realizing that Certain members of society aren't as interested in having long-time career aspirations, applying for one job, being hired, and staying on for 20, 30, 40 years, and then retiring. Sometimes people are interested in having multiple jobs, trying out different areas and seeing where they might want to work, what careers they might want to pursue. Okay? So gaps are less important today with unemployment than they were in the past. There's a greater emphasis, though, on what you bring to the table in terms of your skills and your values. I frequently mention this, and today's show is no exception. Employers are always looking for with him. What's in it for me? If you've listened to a past couple shows, you should be able to recite it with me. With him. WIIFM, Craig. That's what's in it for me. With that said, it's the value you bring, the skills, your capabilities. Along with that, it's how you can sell yourself during an interview and how you can prepare your resume to look solid and strong to put you in a good place to get that interview. Your confidence during an interview also is key. If you have unemployment gaps and it's a fact of life, I would suggest you accept it. Don't see yourself as a failure, number one, and don't see yourself as someone that is lesser than anyone else. For one point or another, most of us have had gaps in our resumes, gaps in our lives, whether it's educational or it's work-based. Very few people can consistently say, I have gone to school from, one time period to another, immediately got a job, and worked since. And if you can say that, that's great. That's something good to have on your resume. It's a strength. It's something to be proud of. But for others, such as you and me, I suddenly lost my job years ago due to the economy crash. One day I was working towards, 12 years of dedicated service, and the next I was unemployed. So it can happen to anyone, and this may have happened to you. And as our economy fluctuates with needs, jobs will change as well, the availability of jobs. But currently, there are help wanted signs everywhere, like I mentioned. So that shouldn't stop you from pursuing getting a job. Your job might be a placeholder just to bring in some income to pay your bills while you look for a longer-term goal, a longer-term job, a career position. Or it could be that you want a variety of jobs, try yourself out, kind of, put your feet in the water and see which pool is best for me, which job world is best for me. So with that said, we talked about bringing skills and values to the table when it comes to your resume and when it comes to interviewing. That along with your confidence when interviewing. What you can talk about with your downtime with unemployment gaps is what you filled that time with. If you recall doing any studying, any training, if you were searching for jobs, was there any particular education? Did you do any research online? Anything to better yourself? Anything to improve? Anything like that is valuable to put on your resume if it's a skill that applies to a future job you're looking at, but it's also something good you can bring up during an interview to say, during my downtime, I volunteered. I donated my time. I bettered myself by applying myself and working in this area, or I got a part-time job or an internship. Now, obviously, this has all happened in the past, so I don't encourage lying or stretching of the truth by any means, but if you have a current employment gap now, whether it's days, weeks, or months, it happens to all of us. It happened to me, okay? I come from an area of experience. I can sympathize and understand when those things happen. What you need to do, though, after hearing today's show, is start to make a change for yourself. Instead of saying, hey, I'm a victim, I lost my job, rather you could say, I have an opportunity to fill that place while I'm looking for a job with this. I used to go to physical libraries. Yep, these are freestanding buildings that you'd go into, find a book, find a video cassette, a tape cassette, and play it. Gosh, I'm dating myself talking about cassettes and tape. I don't even know if those things exist anymore. Now we've got CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays, and heck, that stuff's even going away, by the way. It's all going to digital, right? It's all going to be wireless, all in the airwaves. But anyway, I digress. What will you fill your time with when it's free while you're looking? That's important. You don't have to talk about in the interview how much time you spent studying or how lengthy your pursuit was for certain topics, certain training, certain education. Just the fact that you did it is important. So, with that said, Did you fill your downtime with education? Did you take the time regarding SWOT that I talk about, SWOT? Did you take the time for the S to polish your strengths? Maybe one of your skills, your strengths was at an 88 or 90% if you self-ranked. Maybe you polish that skill a little more. Make it a 91 to 92%. Then on the W from SWOT, the W is weakness. Did you take some time to improve your weakness, the areas that you're not strong in? You're the only one that can answer that. But if you know you have some weaknesses, rather than complain about them or hold them as negatives, work on improving them. Also, with regards to unemployment gaps, any placeholder activities you've had between jobs, I briefly mentioned this earlier, but I think it's important to note. Had you volunteered, even in the least? Did you donate your time? Work in any clubs, any teams you were part of? Were you part of sports activities? Did you exercise? Did you work out? Did you take up some type of health improvement activity, walking around the block or the lake? Anything like that goes to show that you're using your time to be productive and proactive. Any groups that you currently belong to or that you belong to, anything from churches to, school groups while you're unemployed. I think these things are valuable to list on your resume, even if briefly, so that you have them and you're available to talk to them if you need to define why or explain partly what you did on your unemployment gap. Perhaps lawn care, pressure washing. Did you donate your time in your community? If you speak multiple languages, ESOL is a program. I think it's English as a second language. You could help with that. When you're job searching, make sure that you look for a job that aligns with your values, that's a good fit for you. Money is one thing, but benefits are another. And in the end, it's mostly about environment and culture. I can't say that enough. So you might be a good fit for the company, but is the company a good fit for you? When we say company, the company should have a vision statement, a mission statement. You should know what it's about when you're applying and connect with them. But also your coworkers. Are they following the mission and vision statement? Does the company practice, so to speak, what they preach? Doing a diligent search for the right job can really help you when you're preparing to take on your next employment opportunity. And you don't want to waste your time being prepared to explain an unemployment gap if you're in a difficult situation with a company that isn't a good fit for you. Make sure that you search for your passion. Make sure that you have confidence about yourself. And if you don't, that's okay. Start to work on it day by day. Be prepared to talk about an educational or an unemployment gap on your resume, but do it so briefly. And most importantly, I would suggest not to apologize. Apologies can be seen as weakness. And while it's true you and I have had unemployment gaps, it doesn't mean it's something that we should be sad about, something that we should apologize for, or something that we need to explain in great detail. Just mention it. Tell what you did. If you had a placeholder activity in that time, learning, education, volunteering, working, internships, paid or unpaid jobs, helping out in your neighborhood. If you had that, list it. If you didn't, it was brief, and now you're looking for this, and you're moving on. And sometimes, by the way, because of COVID or other situations, we might have had life situations happen. Family members have been sick. You needed to care for someone. Perhaps you were sick yourself, or you had other reasons, personal reasons for leave. That's all you have to say. Just make a brief statement and move on. You share with the level of comfort that you feel fits best. So those ideas that I mentioned, talking about how to explain unemployment gaps, are really meant for you to know, number one, it's okay to have an unemployment gap. We can't go back in time and erase them. We might wish we could, but no one's perfect. Or should I say, very few people will have a perfect educational and employment history on their resumes. You never know what's going to happen in the world with regards to the economy, the job force, and even in what appears to be the most stable job, the most stable career can be disrupted. We've seen this before, and we'll likely see it again. History does have a habit of repeating itself. I'm not trying to take a negative aspect here or a negative view, just letting you know that gaps will happen in your life As I've said, they've happened in mine. You and I have to choose. You and I have to decide how we're going to handle them and how we look at them. Just a brief mention that you've had a gap. If you've had any filler activity, mention that, and then move on to the WIFM. What's in it for me? Talk about the value you're going to bring to that role, to that company, and how your values and your skills align. Also, don't forget, because we're talking about explaining unemployment gaps, we're assuming you're in an interview. Make sure when they interview you, you interview them. You both need to be a good fit for each other, or it's not going to work out. Thanks so much for being a very valuable listener of my show, Career Growth Made Easy. I'm honored to be your host, Craig Ansell. If you found today's show helpful, please do me a favor and go into Apple iTunes or your favorite podcast player and leave a review. We genuinely appreciate it, and we review all the notes to make sure we're hitting our goals, helping you succeed through Career Growth Made Easy. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you ever need career growth coaching advice or help, don't forget our free content, our free downloads on our website, craigansell.com. Just an email address and first name, and your inbox will have your downloads ready. Have a great day ahead. God bless you. We'll talk next week. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every Monday. In the meantime, why don't you follow us on social media at Craig Ansell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To book a coaching appointment, download our free guides, or join our email list, check out the links in the description below.